At the University of Lincoln, we recognise that change is coming, and we're preparing our students to lead that change. That means a great student experience underpinned by world-class research. With our students, we're solving global challenges in fields like health, energy, agriculture and climate. So come to an open day and be the change.
Good evening and welcome to the University of Lincoln Live Lounge. This evening is all around money. So it's all about how you get your student finance and how when you've got it, how you manage it. I'm delighted that you are joining us, and I would like you to say hi if you're watching and where you're watching from and which school you're from. And please feed us your questions. So anything you're not quite sure about student finance, how you go about applying for student finance, and how when you've got the money, how you're going to budget. We've got Anna from our student loans company. Well, not our student loans company, this student loans company. And also Helen. And Helen is from the University of Lincoln's student support team, from our amazing funding team here at Lincoln. Both here to answer any of the questions that you have this evening, and they are absolute experts in their field, so they are here to be able to answer anything that you need to know. So please ask your questions. I'm going to start with you, Amar, and can you, in very, very basic terms, tell us how you go about applying for your student finance?
Thank you very much, and good evening, Emma and Helen, and all of our guests here this evening. So, quite simply, the student finance application cycle opens around February of the academic year that a student is hoping to start university. So, for those students that are looking to start in September 2022, next year, the application cycle will open in February 2022. The exact date is yet to be announced by government. It's an online application, so no more paper applications. However, if you wish to do a paper application, you still can submit one, but not very many people do submit paper applications now. It's a very quick process. So students go through the government website. So that's www.gov.uk/student finance. They set up an account, which is very much like the UCAS account. So you have to set up an account with Student Finance England. Once you've set up your account, it's off you go to the online portal and complete your application. The questions that do come up on the Gov website for your student finance application are very simplistic. And by that, I simply mean there are guidance notes attached to each question. So in effect, you're being guided through the application process electronically. If you do struggle or you need any assistance, there are information buttons and notes that you can click into, and it will explain exactly what we are asking in order for the student to complete their application successfully. There is a timeline to get this done. As I said, it will open in February next year. The government sets a deadline around late May, and there's a reason for doing that. It's not because we're cruel and we want everybody to do their applications within a strict period. The reason we do that is some students are absolutely certain that they wish to start university, and that's great. Some students say, I'm not yet sure if I wish to start university. And again, that's absolutely fine. But what we do is ask you to complete the application. It's free, so there's no cost to completing the application. And by completing it, all you are doing is asking the student loans company to assess your application and have ready for you the money that you may be entitled to, i.e. the maintenance support and the tuition fee, so that when you do start university, there are no delays in the university receiving their tuition fee and the student themselves receiving any maintenance support. If they don't wish to do it within February and May, that's fine. The only problem is if they do it late between June, July and August, there is a slight chance that there will be a delay in students receiving their maintenance support, not the university receiving their tuition, because obviously we have agreements with universities and we make that payment directly to the university. So the key message I would stress today is that if you are thinking about university, uncertain, not sure, absolutely certain that you're going, when the cycle opens in February next year, and the date will be announced close to that time, complete your application anyway. If you do not go to university, no money is released. We delete your application. Simple as.
Fabulous. And when you start the application, can you sort of stop, pause and go back? Is that
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Although what we do encourage is if you have your national insurance number and you can verify your identity through your passport or any other form of identification, it takes about 12 minutes to complete the application, believe it or not. It's
Wow.
only gets complicated when you don't have things like your national insurance number or you haven't provided us with some of the evidence that we've asked from you. So if you do wish to start it and stop, be my guest. Do that. It's absolutely not a problem whatsoever. But what I will remind you is that do complete the application before the May deadline.
So the key point today is, everybody watching, make sure that you can find your national insurance number and have that to hand, because I think that's going to be a handy thing to have. So make sure you've got that certainly by February. And what other information do our applicants need?
Sure. So if you are 16, 17, 18, more likely to be 17 and 18 if you're applying to higher education at this very moment in time, and you're living at home with parents, be that both parents or mom or dad, we do require household income evidence to be submitted to us. Now, I don't right now this evening wish to get into the complexities of what that household income means, but what we say is that mom and dad or both parents will need to supply us evidence of what their salaries are, what their wages are, and we always look at the previous full tax year. So mom and dad can complete an account on gov.uk. Once the student themselves have completed their application and provided their parents' email address, we write to the parents via email, sending them the link to then complete their aspect of the student finance application. And the reason we ask to do that is simply because some students will be entitled to more maintenance support based on their household income, and some will be entitled to less, depending on what their household income is. So every case is unique. Every student is unique in their application form, and therefore what one person gets, your neighbor or your best friend may not be getting. So there's nothing to be worried about. It's all based on your own personal household circumstances.
Fabulous. That's really good to know. And can I just sort of say hi to Daniel, Nicola and Ajit. Welcome and thank you very much. We've got Daniel who's saying he's watching from Woodall Spa and he's currently studying access to HE and at Lincoln College. That's fantastic, Daniel, and I hope you're coming to join us here at Lincoln. So we've got a question here that I'm going to sort of pull out. If I am taking a bank loan, then am I eligible for a scholarship? Now that's quite a complex sort of question, but what I will sort of just say right now is everything that we're talking about is for any applicant that lives in England. This is only for students that are eligible within the framework within England, isn't it? So I'm going to sort of pose the question to both of you with the eligible for scholarship and the bank loan, because I think it's quite a complex sort of question here, but hopefully you can sort of fathom some sort of answer.
Sure. I mean, Helen, if you don't mind, I'll just cover off the bank loan side of it. I mean, we're not financial advisors at the student loans company. So the first thing I will say is that I can't really comment on whether somebody should be taking a bank loan. But just to echo, Emma, what you've said is that student loans company operates within the remit of government, the UK government. And so anybody that's eligible for student funding from us has to be a resident of the United Kingdom. And today we're talking about Student Finance England, so they would have to be a resident in England. So if you have international students watching here today, unfortunately, they would not be able to access funding from Student Loans Company because it is only for UK residents. But Helen, if you wish to talk about some of the bursary side of it or scholarship side, then that's absolutely fine.
I think the best, so hello everybody, I think the best bet regarding scholarships would actually be to look on the University of Lincoln scholarships page. The University of Lincoln has a wide variety of scholarships and bursaries available, and they all have different rules, different eligibility, different application processes. Some are automatic, some you apply for. And it's far better to look through, and also we add them all the time, we create new ones. So I think look on the university website, the link is now on the screen, and see which would potentially fit your circumstances and which you may be able to apply for.
Thank you, that's really good advice, and definitely keep checking our university website because there's a whole host of information on there. We've got a question here. If that I'm going to sort of pull out. If you are over the age of 18, which again, I'm guessing Daniel is as well, and planning on moving to Lincoln in student accommodation, do you still need to check parents' income? Or do you go by your own income, me being 22 years old?
Okay, great question, and thank you very much for that question, Dion. Quite simply, if you are under the age of 25, and this is not a student loans company policy, it is actually a government policy, and as we are a government agency, we administer the policies that they set forward. So where somebody is under the age of 25, they are classed as dependent upon parental household income. There are some caveats to that, i.e. there are some exceptions to that. You can be classed as an independent student if you are under 25. And there are some caveats which say if you're under 25, i.e. you're married or in a civil partnership, or that you may have the care of a young child, or that you have been estranged from your parents or your family, you have been self-sufficient financially for at least 3 years, then under those circumstances, no, we would not consider parental household income. And on that circumstance, actually, we wouldn't consider your own income either, because where you are the student progressing to higher education, it's not your earned income, it is unearned taxable income. And again, without sounding too complex around what is unearned taxable income, quite simply, if you suddenly won the Euro lottery on Friday, let me be your first call, please, I'll be your best friend for life. But if you own a property and you earn income from renting a room on that property, that is unearned income. That has to be declared. But if you are the student yourself and you get qualified as an independent student, then no, there is no income. You would receive the full maintenance support depending on the threshold of where you go to study. So if you move away from home, it would be the elsewhere rate. And if you went to London, it would be the London rate.
Amazing, thank you. And I think we've just found out that Dion is 23, not 22. I think we've forgotten a birthday there. So talking about parents' income and parental income, and I'm sure there's lots of people watching this evening that probably don't live with both parents. So what on earth do people do in that scenario? Because I'm sure that's quite a common question. I know when I've been out to schools, people ask that. Helen's nodding. At open days, we get asked that, don't we? So, between the pair of you, I'm quite happy as to who answers this, but I think it is quite a common question, and that's why we're here tonight, to sort of offer that sort of support.
Again, I'm happy to answer it from a student loans company's regulation perspective and what we look for. And the amount of times, you're absolutely right, Emma, the amount of times that I personally get asked that question via email or phone, I wish I was charging £1 for every time I would ask. I could have retired by now to Greece or somewhere like that. So quite simply, we do have circumstances where young people live with a split household. So parents are divorced or separated. From a student support point of view and our assessors, I'm not an assessor, but when your application reaches our head office in Darlington, our assessors look at who you live with. Now, the quote unquote regulation on this from government is who do you normally live with? Quite as simple as that. Mm-hmm. So if you live with mom most of the time, that's absolutely fine. It would be mom's income that comes as the household income. If you live with dad, it would then be dad's income. Now, the trick here becomes is if a student says, well, I split my time equally between both parents. And again, we're not overly precious from an assessment point of view that you split your time equally with mom or dad. You just simply pick who you believe that you ordinarily spend a little bit more time with, and you declare that household income to us. Helen, I don't know if you want to expand on that in your own experience of supporting students at Lincoln from that perspective.
No, I mean, exactly as you say. I mean, and you do get scenarios where obviously, say, a parent is now with a new partner who isn't the biological parent, and in which case it's household income that will be taken into consideration. So that would include the other partner who isn't the biological parent. So again, that would be, and I believe you have to send evidence of single status as well quite often if one of the parents is single, and there's a list of evidence you can send for that. The best one is usually the council tax letter, because those who are exempt for council or have a reduced council tax due to single person status and have that declared on their council tax letter can use that as proof of single status, and often that's the one we choose to suggest that students submit, because you don't have to pay for, like a solicitor's letter or something. So we suggest that. But it's all explained through the student loans company application process. It's very clear.
Absolutely. Just to echo exactly what Helena said there.
Thank you. That's great. Thank you for that, because I know that is quite a worry for parents. Lauren has asked a question. A great question, Lauren. I love this question. I'm a twin, which is amazing. And both of us are looking to start university in 2022, which is great. Fabulous. Is there any financial help that's different for this situation?
Okay, so hi Lauren, and lovely to see that you're a twin. I have twins in my family as well. The two older to me are twins. So from a student finance assessment process, again, we have what's known as a disregard for anyone else that is entering higher education or in full-time education for the household income. And that disregard is £1,130 for any sibling that is also starting higher education. So again, without wanting to go into the complexities of how the assessments work, in simple, yes, we do take allowance of the fact that two people will be starting university, and the assessments will be carried out on each individual student starting university in 2022, and we will deduct £1,130 from the household income, from the parental income, household income, whichever it might be, to allow for both of you starting university.
Fabulous, thank you, and good luck with your applications, Lauren, and your brother or sister. I'm just going to sort of reiterate again, unfortunately, the information that we are talking about tonight is only for students that are resident in England. So questions around your CASs and things like that, please just email inquiries@lincoln.ac.uk and we will filter those out into the right areas around the university. But unfortunately, the information we're talking about now is very much only students in England, unfortunately, but we have help at the university, so don't worry about that. We can help you. I've got a question for you, Helen. What if I'm applying to do a health professional programme, so be that medicine, nursing? Is there any additional support for those sort of programmes?
There is. The main one that there's extra funding for is if you're studying what they would call pre-registration healthcare course or allied healthcare course. So that's at the University of Lincoln. That is nursing, and we do mental health, adult and child. We do midwifery as well. Also paramedic science falls into that as well. So they're the undergraduate courses that we run that would fall into this additional funding I'm about to talk about. So as well as your funding through the student loans company, so tuition fee loan, maintenance loan and any other funds you may be eligible through that, the NHS a couple of years ago introduced the Learning Support Fund. The Learning Support Fund is made up of about 4 different funds. The biggest pot of money is what they call the training grant. That is £5,000 per level of study. It doesn't pay for repeat years, but it's per completed level of study. It's not means tested, so there isn't a means test like you would get with some of the student loans company products. So you get that each year. There's a specialist subject payment of £1,000. Currently, the course at University of Lincoln that attracts that is the mental health nursing course. There are parental allowances. You can claim back some of your practice placement expenses as well, and they also have an exceptional hardship fund as well. What they do is they ask that you apply for your student finance first, and they make the student loans company do all the work first. So student loans company check your eligibility, and then they piggyback on the back of that. It's quite lazy if you ask me. And then and they use the assessment that Student Finance England have carried out to work out if they're eligible for their product. And if they are, you get that paid throughout the year. The payments are usually made after the maintenance loans payments comes into their middle of the term rather than the beginning of the term.
That's fabulous. So just sort of, we are going to meet Mitchell and Harriet very soon, but actually we're going to talk about how they manage their money. But actually, in a very basic term, we've talked about the maintenance loan. When and how is that distributed when you get that money?
Okay, so once a student has completed their online application form, assuming that they've submitted all of the household income evidence and all of the evidence that we've required from them. And that's a key point here. If we do contact a student or a parent via email, please don't ignore those emails. There's a reason we email, and it's often because we've asked for something. And if you don't send us the information, that means there's going to be a delay in us sending out your maintenance support to you. So once the application has been completed, a student will receive what's known as a notification of entitlement letter, a beautiful blue and white letter, which will have the Student Finance England logo on the top, explaining exactly how much maintenance loan is being provided, how we will pay that, and we usually pay it in 3 installments. So it's generally 3 equal installments, but for any mathematicians listening here today, it's 33%, 33%, and then 34%, and that equals 100% if my maths is correct. So we will make one payment to a student once they have enrolled and started at their university, and we release the payment electronically into their bank account. So, for instance, Helen or someone in her team will contact Student Loans Company and say, student has registered at University of Lincoln. They send us an electronic confirmation. In the world of electronics, it's all done that way now, no more phone calls or sending paper through the post. We receive that electronically at our head office. And within 2 to 3 working days, the first installment of that maintenance loan is then released into a student bank account. And that's generally around the 5th of October is when we make that first payment. The second payment is then released in January after the Christmas break. And again, the student has to confirm that they have returned to university to start the second term of their first year course. And then the final installment is paid after the Easter break around May. And again, that is to confirm that the student has actually returned to the university, still on course, because remember, this is public purse money, this is taxpayers' money. And if you are not at university, not studying, you cannot have the maintenance support.
One of my questions, and sorry, audience, I will just pick up on your questions. So I'm not ignoring you. I'm definitely not, because we've got some mature student questions. Helen, I'm going to ask you this. Do we just apply as a new applicant, or actually do we apply every year that we are a student, and how do we go about that?
Yeah, so so in your very first application, you apply as a brand new student, and that's a more in-depth application. So as Amar said earlier on, that's when they verify passport details, NI number, and that sort of thing. When students reapply, they go on the online system. The online system is very clever, so it knows you and it'll go, hey, you're back again. Has anything changed? If you say no, you just fill in the form and you carry on through it. Sometimes students might start on a course that has a placement year, and then they perhaps change to the same course, but they've decided not to undertake placement, and they need to change to make sure the funding reflects that. So when it is asked, are you on exactly the same course, you would say no, and then you would pick either the one with the placement or without, and then that would make sure for the whole course you're funded. But you do need to apply each academic year. But Student Loans Company are brilliant with reminding students to make their application again each year. There's loads of social media information out there. The university provides information, and that prompts you to do it as soon as it opens for application.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Sorry, Emma, I do apologize. I was just going to add to the excellent articulation that Helen's just given on students who have to apply each year. Quite simply, what we do is we email the students early January to say that you are 9 months away from starting your second year. So we give you 9 months notice to let us know that you are continuing into your second year. And if nothing changes, it's a very simple process. It's a tick box. Nothing has changed, and that's it. We continue your assessment as per the previous application.
I think the lesson here is don't ever ignore an email from the Student Loans Company, isn't it?
Absolutely not. No.
It's not a wise thing to do.
There's a reason we email. I mean, we are friendly, so we it's not that we're emailing just to make conversation. There's a reason we email.
Absolutely. I'm going to pick up Nicola's question, and then we are going to meet Mitchell and Harriet and find out how they manage their maintenance loan, really. So Nicola has asked a question: what are the grants and funds should I apply for being a single parent and mature student? Brilliant.
Excellent question, Nicola. So if you are a mature applicant, obviously, as I said earlier on, if you joined from the very start, and you're over 25 and you're going to be classed as independent, because if you've got the care of a young child, two things will happen. Firstly, you'll be awarded the maximum maintenance support loan package, depending on where you're going to study and live at that time. So if you're staying at home, you'll get the maximum rate there. The other thing is, as a single parent, and if your child is 15 and under in full-time education, 17 if it's special educational needs statemented, you'll also receive what's known as a parent learning allowance. And this is a grant that doesn't generally have to be repaid. The only time it needs to be repaid is if it's being given incorrectly to you, or that you drop out of your education and do not complete your studies. So the parent learning allowance can be a minimum amount between £50 and the top end, which is just over £1,800 for next year. So if you have children, again, you're also eligible for the childcare grant from us as well. And again, that depends on how many children you have and that your child, what the age they are. If they're at nursery age or childcare provider, then you get an amount that is now assessed as part of what's known as a 52-week assessment period. That money goes electronically into a government account, and you draw down that money to pay your childcare bill for while your child is in an Ofsted approved provider. So the parent learning allowance, the childcare grant is on top of maintenance support and maximum maintenance support. In theory, for the circumstances that you've just put in your question. Obviously, there's a lot more checks that need to be done before being assessed as an independent student. But generally speaking, yes, there is additional funding available to you from Student Loans Company. And again, it's also worthwhile speaking to the universities that you're thinking about studying at in terms of, as a mature applicant, the course that you're looking at studying, what additional support in terms of bursaries and scholarships might be available to you. And Lincoln are running an excellent banner at the moment around University of Lincoln /scholarships. So please do have a look at Lincoln for that.
Thank you. Nicholas also asked a supplementary question. I already have student finance for my Access course. So do I start a new application or continue?
It's a new application because Access courses draw down what's known as an advanced learner loan, and that's a further education. So it's an FE loan. The application portal will still be the same, gov.uk. So Nicola, as you are familiar with setting up an account, you'll set up an account for the HE support version again, and you'll go through the same portal to complete your higher education student finance England support, but it's a new application.
Fabulous, thank you. So I'm just going to, I've not been able to pick up all of the questions so far, so I apologise for that. But Dion, if you have a question that you want to ask us, then we are here. Please email us at enquiries@lincoln.ac.uk, and whatever that question is, we will pick that up, answer it, or point it in the right direction at the university. Equally, if you are an international student with a question, please do the same. What we can do is direct those questions to the right area across the university and make sure that we pick all of those up. I'm going to take one more question from Daniel, the last question before we go into sort of Mitchell and Harriet and find out how they budget. Daniel has asked a question: what grants would you be eligible for if you were on an autistic spectrum?
Excellent question, Daniel, and thank you very much and good evening to you. So from Student Loans Company, we have what's known as the Disability Support Allowance, DSA. So if you see the initials on applications or on support literature, DSA, that relates to the Disability Support Allowance. So the autistic spectrum is covered under the Equality Act of 2010, so it is covered for DSA support. Generally, when you apply for your online student tuition fee and any maintenance support, if you declare a disability, i.e. in your case, the autistic spectrum, it will trigger a digital online application form for the DSA support as well. If you can have any of your medical evidence documentation ready at hand when you do that, when you complete your DSA application form online, you can submit your evidence through digital upload as well. You will then get a letter from our DSA support team, and that's known as a DSA 1 letter, that will identify that they've accepted your evidence and that you are then being referred to a needs assessment report center, whereby educational psychologist, a clinical psychologist will spend some time with you. It's not a test and it's not an examination. It is a support service that is offered by the government, and they will sit with you and assess exactly what your needs are for the duration of your higher education studies, both undergraduate, postgraduate, PhD. So your DSA support stays with you for the rest of your life, no matter how many studies you do after your degree. Once that report is completed by the educational psychologist, they submit that to our DSA team. Once that is accepted, we will then issue you what's known as a DSA2 letter. I do apologize about all of this. And that will effectively tell you exactly the amount of support that will be given to you for your duration at university based on the needs that have been identified by the specialist in that meeting that you've held with that person.
Fabulous. That's really reassuring, and I hope that helps you, Daniel. Thank you so much. I'm going to say thank you so much to both of you. You have got such a wealth of knowledge between the pair of you. I can't say how grateful I am to both of you. Also, I'm just going to ask Ryan, who is our producer this afternoon, to put a couple of websites along the banner as we meet with Harriet and Mitchell. One of those being the Money Saving Expert website, the Martin Lewis sort of website. I always recommend that. It's so simple to sort of, if you're really unsure and it all seems a little bit baffling still, go and have a look on there, because it's really explained really sensibly there, isn't it? And it really sort of breaks everything down. And also it breaks down the repayment and how and when you repay, so that it's not too stressful and too challenging for anybody. It just breaks it all down, and especially sort of after watching this. So I'm going to say thank you so much to both of you. I'm going to wish, if I don't see either of you again, I wish you a very happy Christmas. And hopefully we've got your support for all of the applicants that submit for the University of Lincoln. So thank you very much. Thanks for joining us.
You're more than welcome. Thank you very much indeed. Have a lovely evening. Merry Christmas all.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now going to meet two students, and they are Harriet and Mitchell, and they are both students here at Lincoln. And they are, we've got Harriet, who is a second year biomed student, and Mitchell, who is a third year history student. So you're both well-established students here at Lincoln. And what we'd like to know really is, we know now how you apply for the student loans. You know, we get a maintenance loan and we get a tuition fee loan. I want to know, we've applied, you both obviously applied in the right same format. So when you arrived the first sort of week at university at Lincoln, can I ask Mitchell, how and when did you get that maintenance first instalment into your bank account?
I said when I applied for it, obviously you kind of put your bank details in, what account you want to be paid into, and I then transferred that into another account. So my weekly budget, I kind of calculated how much after my kind of rent, things like that, and I transferred it then into another account. So that separate account I had day to day, kind of my week. Then I knew got that much in there, I can spend that much this week, how much got left. So I did it that way when I first got here.
Fabulous. Harriet, I think you just need to unmute and then you can answer your question as well, if that's okay.
Yeah, so I actually did it differently to Mitchell. So I keep my whole student loan in one account because I find it easier to be able to decide to spend a little bit more one week, a little bit less the next week. But I work out roughly what I would have each week up until my next loan comes in. So the loan comes in 3 different parts for the semesters. To get one like quite early on, one in the middle and one at the end. So I work out how much I have per week for that whole time. And then if I go over 1 week, I know that the next week I need to rein it in a little bit. And I do it that way because I find it easier than giving myself a weekly budget.
No, that's absolutely fine. And that's good to know, isn't it? There's a very different sort of sets of how you sort of manage your money, which people do. And what I want to know is, did you establish that pre-coming to Lincoln? Did you sort of think, do you know what, this is how I'm going to do it? Or did that just sort of naturally work sort of did you work out your budget as you got the money, or had you done that prior to?
So I think like most students, I had a bit of a blowout in Freshers Week. And I spent more money than I probably should have. And then I realised that, I've only got this much left for the rest of the semester. So then I worked out what my budget would be based on what I had left over, because that was kind of how I'd done it. And I think most students kind of come not realising how much Freshers Week will cost, and then work it out after. But some people are more sensible.
I'm sure they're not. There's a lot of expenditure during that first week. So would your advice as students be to sort of perhaps save a little bit of money before you start university?
Yeah, I think a summer job over that summer is always a good idea if you can, just so you do have a little bit of extra money for Freshers Week. But yeah.
Wow, brilliant. One of my questions really is, obviously accommodation is quite a big expense out of and I don't want to know necessarily your personal details or your parental support at all. But when you were applying for university and looking at accommodation, was that a factor into your sort of maintenance loan and as to which accommodation you could live in, and particularly as you progressed into your second and third year, did your plans change at all for your accommodation? Mitchell, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, again, in my first year or before I applied, I kind of roughly, I put my application in quite early, so I kind of had a rough idea of how much I was going to be paid. And kind of obviously, I'd always kind of had part-time jobs ever since kind of sort of year 11, really. So I'd always had kind of trickling income, kind of saved up. Again, I kind of had a look at the accommodation options, kind of think how much it's going to cost me. I think first year I went, I kind of picked probably the best one I could at the time. As I got into kind of my second and third years, you kind of, especially through my first year, I realised that kind of how much an expense actually is over the kind of year. By far, my biggest expense through my second and now into my third year. I kind of worked out, picked a slightly cheaper options to live in. Again, still nice, but again, you just kind of save so much more. I could put other places. I'm glad I picked where I lived in first year. Don't get me wrong, I really enjoyed it. I loved every minute. But kind of second and third year, I thought actually having that kind of little bit more every week would benefit me more now going on as opposed to at the start.
Fabulous, thank you. Now, I'm just going to request that anybody in the audience, if you've got any questions for Harriet and Mitchell as to how they manage their money as students, and please ask. That's why we're here this evening, so ask away. Now, I have got a bit of inside knowledge in knowing that both of you have part-time roles and part-time jobs. So I'd be interested as to how you knew when you got to university that there was opportunities to work part-time, and tell me sort of how you went about that, really. So Harriet, I'll go to you first.
Yeah, so we have a thing called the Careers and Employability Centre at the uni, and I don't know whether every student gets it or whether I just set it up. I can't remember because it was quite a long time ago, but every Friday I get an email with loads of opportunities for what jobs the university are offering. So we have 3 bars on campus, so there's jobs in the bars that we can get, and then there's also like this job. So I'm a recruitment ambassador for the university, which means I do like presentations and work on open days and things like that, and we are lucky enough that the uni pays us to do that. So we do that, and I kind of chose that job over working in the city, which is obviously another option, because then I can work it around my studies a bit more, and that obviously understanding that my studies are going on alongside the job. So yeah, that's how I did that.
Mitchell, how did you know about, because I'm just going to let the audience know that both Harriet and Mitchell are both work as student ambassadors, and that's why we've sort of brought them along today and the university. So Mitchell, how did you find out about becoming a sort of student ambassador?
I kind of first knew about it in kind of the open day, I think, when I visited. My family were kind of quite keen, kind of the financial side, how I was going to kind of manage my money. So again, I remember I kind of looked in my first week, kind of roughly at the careers team and the employability, kind of what they offered. It wasn't, again, really until this year, kind of started this year, I thought, actually, I'll have another look. Obviously, first year was a bit, obviously, unfortunately, shrouded by COVID a bit, and obviously, same with second year. So obviously, my third year this year, I looked, thankfully, in October, there was an opportunity, I applied, and kind of here we are, and it's been very beneficial, I must admit.
Fab. Well, you are a very good student ambassador, so we like having you working for us. So we've talked about accommodation, we've talked about sort of part-time jobs, which at Lincoln we have opportunities, or the university will also have opportunities. And Dion has just asked a question, so we will pick that question out. Is there many places for you to be able to get a job? As I feel when I've been looking at accommodation, it's around the 150, 180 a week, and we've been told we don't get much maintenance. So again, it's just reinforcing where and how the jobs in the cities are advertised. So Harriet, if you want to just pick that up for Dion, that'd be really helpful.
Yeah, of course. So obviously it is a university city. So there are things like bars, nightclubs. There's also lots of shops. So I don't know if anyone's been to Lincoln, but we're like 4 minutes away from the high street from the campus. And obviously there's shops all the way up and down there. And they're quite keen to get students in as workers for them. Last Christmas, I worked in a corner shop over the Christmas period just to kind of supplement myself with presents and things like that. So it's quite easy to kind of walk into a shop or apply online. And again, the Careers and Employability Centre do send out emails about the city jobs as well as the internal jobs. So it is pretty easy. It's kind of all there. And you can also go onto the Careers and Employability website for it. And there's other places like Indeed that you can go and find jobs, or just look on the websites of the different shops and you can see if they're employing through that.
Fabulous, thank you. And also, as we sort of said earlier, to check onto the university website as to any of the bursaries and scholarships that we offer as well, which if it's tagged a bursary and a scholarship, it's not a loan, so it is definitely something that you don't pay back, and they can vary in amounts, so it's definitely worth having a look to see how you can get involved with those if you're eligible as well, which all supplement your sort of student income really. So another sort of major thing of student life is obviously you want to enjoy your student experience, and we know we can get a part-time job. We know that living at university is our sort of biggest outcome really. Outcome, that's right. But we need to eat. So are there any tips in where you work, where you live, in your sort of student accommodation? Are there any tips from where you work, where you live, as to how you the best income, the best way that you can sort of eat well and healthily and not live on pot noodles as a sort of cliche sort of student food? What sort of things do you do? So Mitchell, I'll go to you first and then I'll go to you, Harriet.
Yep. Again, I always tend to shop at the slightly cheaper supermarkets. You find obviously some Tesco, Morrison's near so the Morrison's near us in Lincoln tends to be quite expensive on certain items. So I used to go to the Lidl, it's a little bit further out, but things tend to be much, much cheaper. I always used to write a list every time I go, so I know exactly what I'm going to get. I can't straight off the list. I can't go in wander and think, well, I fancy that or I want that. I've got a list. I can stick by that then. I used to buy sort of off-brand stuff, so not the kind of top brand stuffs, kind of non-label stuff. So much cheaper in the long run. And the stuff tends to be just as good most of the time, if not better in some cases. I used to batch cook quite a lot as well. I still do now. Things like sort of bologneses, lasagnas, you can make 4 or 5 portions out of it, store it, freeze it. So I had a long day at uni, busy, or just couldn't do it for some reason. I've got a meal there ready to go. So they were the kind of things I used to do and still do now.
That's a really good idea. Harriet, have you got any top tips for your food shopping?
Sorry, I think I gave feedback then. So in our house we tend to buy things like potatoes, pasta, rice, bread all together. And one of the things we do differently from last year is cook meals together. So it tends to mean that there's less food waste. So we use our food up more, and we'll take turns. So one month or week or whatever, I'll buy the potatoes, and then when they run out, they'll buy the potatoes. So it just means that the costs are kind of spread a little bit more evenly across the year. And then you save money because you're cooking in bigger portions, so you don't waste as much.
Absolutely. So the top tip is to suddenly learn how to make a chili and a bolognese and some real staples then as well. So you've got friends straight away as you join your accommodation, I guess. And do you rotate with the cooking as well, Harriet, as well as the shopping?
We try to, but I enjoy cooking quite a lot, so I always argue and kind of jump in a bit too much. But we try to.
But you're everybody's friend, really. Fabulous. So I'm going to sort of wrap up now. Oh, Dion, is there a KFC not far from campus? There is a KFC, and one of the things that actually I was unaware of, because I live in the city, but also we, as a special treat, and this is a treat, not amazingly budgeted in, but most of the accommodation, I think, is within the Deliveroo and Just Eat sort of scenario as well, isn't it?
Yeah, and Deliveroo and Just Eat tend to have deals on as well. So I think our house, again, we kind of go and order all together just to get some more money off.
Yeah, not favouring any of the takeaway fast food outlets, but anybody that has been to Lincoln and been to the University of Lincoln, you will see that the McDonald's is very close to our student accommodation. So I can guarantee that is very close if you want to treat yourself with your food alongside your batch cooking and everything else. So I'm going to sort of begin to wrap up right now, and I'm going to ask one final question to Harriet and Mitchell. So if you were a student now and you were in year 13 right now, about to sort of apply to university in February, apply to your for your finance, is there a top tip that you would give somebody right now anticipating starting in September next year? So I'm going to go to you, Harriet, first.
Yeah, so I would say sign up for all the student discount sites, literally all of them, and just kind of have a look at what they've got, and also look at student bank accounts so that you can weigh up which ones offer the best sort of deals for you, and some of them will offer different things. So it's good to look at all of them so that you can see which one's best for you.
Good advice, fabulous advice. Mitchell, what would you give?
Again, I'll just kind of follow along to that from that and reiterating that. Have a look at the scholarships and bursaries. Have a look at what funding's available. I found that I didn't think I was eligible for anything, but I found that actually I was for a couple of things. It's definitely worth having a look. Obviously, some do need you to apply to them. Again, have a look, see if you can get some funding. Definitely learn how to cook some staples, staple meals as well. It's always handy if you cook a bolognese or a chili, something like that. I'd definitely say that. It's always handy.
Definitely is. And actually, as you're walking around the supermarkets while mum and dad are paying for your food, go and actually have a look how much things actually cost and what you can save. That I would say that's probably quite a good bit of research you can do ahead of next September as well. Thank you so much, Harriet and Mitchell. And I just want to reiterate my thanks to Emma and Helen. We are here, and as we've said, there are a lot of supports. There's websites that can help you. And as we know, the student finance opens in February 2022. So you can't go away and start your application now. This is preparing you ready for February when you can submit your application. We will absolutely help all the way as a university. And before we leave, I just want to ask that everybody joins us next week for our final live lounge of the year, which is all about the admissions process here at Lincoln, the support, and our guaranteed offer scheme here at Lincoln. So you can find out a little bit more about that. Certainly very relevant for anybody that's about to submit their application or has submitted their application here with us at Lincoln. So thank you so much. Please enjoy your evening, and we look forward to seeing you next week. Thank you very much.